Picture two people, both saved $100,000. 10 years later, one has $180,000, the other has $450,000. Same income, same market. So what actually changed between them? Here's the truth. The first 6 figures isn't a finish line. It's the moment the math finally flips. The math stops working for your boss and starts compounding for you. Most people quit right before that turn. They stare at a savings jar that never seems to fill, give up, and never see the snowball form. Charlie Munger said the first 100,000 is a bitch. Everyone quotes that line, almost nobody explains it. Here's the thing, the $100,000 threshold isn't really about the money, it's actually about momentum building. Let me explain. For most of your life, you've been told the exact same script: save 10% monthly, max out the retirement account, buy the index fund, wait until 65, collect the gold watch, done.
That's the rule everyone parrots, because it's safe, simple, and it fits neatly on a fridge magnet at home. And it's not wrong, it's just incomplete. That rule is linear thinking trapped inside an exponential system. Saving 10% assumes every dollar you add does the same work as the last one. It absolutely doesn't. The dollar you save at 22 is doing a completely different job than the dollar you save at 45. One has decades to multiply and compound silently. The other is just plugging a hole in your retirement plan. Most people don't realize this, but the average saver never actually feels any real progress month to month. They put away $200 monthly. A year later, they have barely more than they originally started with. The market wiggles, inflation eats a chunk, the balance looks almost identical. So they ask the worst possible question: is this even working? Then they stop, or touch it, or borrow from themselves, and the whole thing resets. Here's what they're missing. One specific number quietly breaks the boring saver model. Cross it, and the rules flip. The number is 100,000. Doesn't matter if it's in an index fund, brokerage, or retirement account. What matters is that it exists in one pile, working for you. Here's the paradox almost nobody explains correctly. The first 100,000 takes longer to build than the next 400,000. Read that again. The hardest stretch of your investing life runs from 0 to 100,000. After that, things speed up. Not because you got smarter or the market got nicer, because the math finally has something to multiply. This is what Munger meant. He told young people, work 2 jobs, skip the car, eat rice and beans. Just get to 100,000. Then you can ease off. The portfolio starts pulling its own weight. Why? Because of a number most people never sit down and actually calculate. At a 7% real return, roughly what a diversified stock portfolio earns long-term after inflation, 100,000 throws off 7,000 a year without you doing anything. 7,000 a year is roughly $600 a month. That's a car payment, that's groceries, that's a mortgage chunk, and it shows up whether you went to work or stayed in bed. Now compare that to a saver with just $10,000 invested at the same 7% return rate. That's about $700 a year, roughly $60 a month. $60 barely covers a streaming bundle. So when that saver looks at their account and sees almost no movement, they conclude investing simply doesn't work. They sell, they spend it, they start over, and they tell every friend that the stock market is rigged. Here's the thing, the market isn't rigged at all. Their pile is just too small to actually feel it. That's the hidden mechanism. Compounding is real at every level, but it's only truly visible above a certain threshold. Below that line, your contributions dominate everything. Above that line, the returns finally start to dominate the entire picture. $100,000 is roughly where this dominance flips. Let me break down what that actually looks like. In year 1 of saving, basically all of your account growth comes from money you personally put in there. Your contributions might be 98% of the growth. The market itself does almost nothing visible at all. 5 years in, contributions are still around 70% of growth, while the market quietly handles the other 30. 10 years in, it's roughly 50-50 now. The market finally starts pulling its own weight right beside you. 20 years in, the market is doing 2/3 of the work and you're only doing 1/3 of it. 30 years in, your contributions look like a rounding error compared to what the snowball throws off on its own. So when somebody says, just keep saving, it will add up, they're technically right, but skipping the most important part. They're not telling you about the invisible phase, the phase where your progress is mostly psychological, not yet financial. The phase where you have to trust math you cannot yet see and just keep showing up anyway with conviction. And this is the hidden cost of waiting for enough before you start to invest at all. Every year you delay isn't a year of missed savings. It's a year of missed multiplication entirely. The dollar you didn't invest at 25 doesn't just cost that $1 at age 65 later. It costs you that dollar times 7 or 8 or 10, depending on how long it would have run. That's why the people who win this game aren't the smartest ones, they're simply the earliest ones. But here's where most finance channels get the story wrong. They stop at compound interest is magic. Cute slogan, useless in practice. The truth is, 100,000 by itself isn't magic at all. The behavior around 100,000 is. And almost everyone sabotages themselves at exactly this fragile threshold. Let me break it down. The moment you cross 6 figures in your brokerage account, something shifts. Something psychological happens. You feel rich for the very first time. Not actually rich, but close. Just rich relative to the version of you who had $9,000 in a checking account. And that feeling, right there, is the single most expensive feeling in all of personal finance. Because real wealth and looking wealthy are completely different sports played by completely different kinds of people.
The person who quietly has 100,000 invested looks identical to the person who has nothing. Same car, same clothes, same apartment, nothing flashy or loud about their everyday outward look or vibe whatsoever. The person who looks like they have 100,000, leased SUV, designer watch, weekend trips abroad, usually has negative net worth. They're not wealthy at all, they're entirely funded by ever-growing consumer debt. But right at the threshold, lifestyle creep ambushes you. You think, I've been saving 10 years, I deserve the upgrade. So you buy the nicer car, move to the bigger place, take the better vacation. None of it feels reckless, each choice is defensible. 6 months later, your savings rate has quietly slid from 20% down to 4%. Here's the thing, this is why most people reset right back to zero, even after crossing the 100,000 line. Not because they lose the money in some crash.
Because they slowly, comfortably, almost invisibly redirect the inputs. The portfolio stops being fed. Stop feeding it during the early years, and compounding never reaches cruising altitude. So the first hidden lesson isn't really about the number itself. It's about not flinching when you finally reach it. Now watch what happens when you don't flinch. Take that 100,000 and add absolutely nothing more. Just let it sit in a diversified portfolio at 7% real. After 10 years, roughly 200,000. You didn't work for that second 100,000. You didn't pick stocks. You just refused to interfere. After 20 years, around 400,000. After 30, 760. After 40, over $1.5 million. All from a single one-time deposit. Now let's do the realistic version. You don't stop. You keep adding. Say $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, on top of that 100,000 starting base. At 7% real, 350,000 after 10 years, around 800,000 after 20, around 1.7 million after 30 years. And somewhere in there, a quiet thing finally happens. The portfolio earns more in a year than your salary does. The snowball finally overtakes the paycheck. Most people never witness this moment because they never let it happen. They tinker, trade, panic in downturns. They chase the hot stock their cousin mentioned at Thanksgiving. They move money for tax reasons they barely understand. Every move costs them. Every move resets the clock. Two archetypes emerge, the tinkerer and the holder. The tinkerer is always doing something, rebalancing, switching brokerages, trying new strategies, convinced activity itself equals progress. The holder bought broad index funds, set automatic contributions, then went outside. Decades later, the holder wins big.
Here's the secret no finance magazine prints. Compounding rewards boredom, not brilliance. Sit still while the math works. The best investors say the hardest part of their job is doing nothing for long stretches. That's the edge. Now the real loss number finally shows up, the number nobody bothers to calculate for themselves. Say you cross 100,000, feel you've earned a break, and cash out for a lifestyle upgrade. What did that decision actually cost? Left alone 25 years, it grows to roughly 550,000. Keep contributing and you clear 800,000. Interrupting the snowball isn't a $100,000 choice.
It's closer to a $700,000 choice, maybe more, depending on your timeline. That's the hidden cost. Cashing out at 100,000 is roughly the most expensive financial decision the average person ever makes. And it usually doesn't feel expensive. It feels responsible. It feels deserved. That, right there, is the trap. There are two hidden thieves here. The first is tax drag. Every time you sell, you trigger taxable events. You reset your cost basis, you bleed friction, and a quiet slice of your gain disappears every single time. The second thief is safety. People move to cash or bonds the moment they cross six figures, calling it protection. They're not protecting it, they're freezing it. Inflation quietly eats it from the inside, year after silent year. After 20 years at 3% inflation, your 100,000 in cash buys about 55,000. This is why the average investor underperforms their own investments by something like 2 to 3% a year. Read that again. Their funds did fine. They underperform their own funds by selling at exactly the wrong time, buying at the wrong time, switching when they should have stayed. The funds did the work, the investor undid it. So picture two paths. Path 1. You look wealthy at 35. Leased car, big apartment, great Instagram, no portfolio. Path 2. Normal looking at 35. Boring car, boring rent, but your snowball already passed 200,000. At 55, Path 1 is still working overtime to keep the appearance going. Path 2 is quietly and dramatically free. Real wealth versus looking wealthy. That's the choice the 100,000 threshold forces on every single saver. Most people pick wrong without realizing they made a choice. If this helped, subscribe for smarter money moves. So what do you actually do the day you cross it? Let me give you a clean framework. 5 rules. Simple, boring, and exactly what the math quietly requires from you at this stage. Rule 1. Automate. Don't admire. The day you cross 100,000, the worst thing is checking daily. Watching it doesn't grow it, but it does make you twitchy. And twitchy, the truth is, gets expensive. Set up automatic contributions. Set up automatic investing inside those contributions. Then close the app and walk away. Logging in twice a year is plenty. The portfolio doesn't need your supervision. It needs your absence. Rule 2. Raise your savings rate, not your lifestyle. When you get a raise, most people upgrade something immediately. Better apartment, better car, better vacations. Here's a smarter money move that almost nobody actually bothers with. Every time your income goes up by $1, root at least half straight into the portfolio first. You don't feel the loss because you never had the money in hand. That's the quiet trick here. Over a few raises, your savings rate quietly climbs from 10% to 15% to 20% without any pain. Rule 3. Index core. Ignore noise. Your core position is the foundation under the entire snowball you're building. it should be diversified, broad, cheap, and boring. A handful of low-cost index funds covering the global market. Want a slice for experiments? Fine, keep it tiny. The core is never where you go trying things. The core is the engine of the whole machine. And engines, the truth is, don't appreciate creativity. Rule 4. Protect the snowball. No withdrawals. Once $1 enters your long-term account, it belongs to future you. Present you is just the custodian. If something blows up, car repair, medical bill, that's what your emergency fund handles. Your emergency fund is the airbag. The portfolio is the engine. Never break the engine to fix a windshield. Rule 5. Track net worth quarterly, not daily. Daily watching is poison. It turns volatility into an emotional roller coaster. Quarterly is enough. Pick a date, first Saturday of every quarter, and write down the total across all accounts. You'll see a slow, lumpy, generally upward line. That line is what matters. The day-to-day noise simply is not. 5 rules. None require intelligence. None require timing. None require luck. They require something rarer: patience and boring discipline.
That's the entire game from 100,000 onward. Let math do its job quietly in the background. Here's the thing most people don't realize. There's another threshold past this. A second invisible line nobody talks about. Around 250,000 invested, something called coast fire quietly becomes possible. Let me explain what that means. Coast fire means your portfolio's big enough that even without adding another $1, it grows to fund a retirement. You can still work, you can still earn, but you're no longer required to save aggressively. Snowball finishes alone. That's a strange feeling. Pressure off, choices wider. You can take the lower-paying job you actually like. You can switch careers, take a year off, while the portfolio quietly keeps compounding in the background regardless. That's what wealth actually is. Not numbers on a screen, but time, optionality, hours you control.
Next video, we break down the 250,000 threshold, what it takes to reach and what it changes. The math turns it from a savings goal into a freedom number, and the whole map of life shifts. Less like a long grind toward 65, more like a series of unlock points along the way. Before you go, here's one smarter money move to lock all of this in, starting today. If you've been waiting to invest because you don't have enough yet, that's the trap. There is no enough. You start at whatever number you have, and you let the snowball find its own size over time. Under 100,000, your only job is to get there as fast as possible without burning out. At 100,000, your only job is to not flinch when markets get loud and scary.
Past it, your only job is to stay boring while the compounding math does the heavy lifting. That's it. That's the whole map. Simple rules repeated for decades with patience as your secret weapon. If this flipped how you see the first 6 figures, subscribe to Andy Explains Money for weekly breakdowns. Next video, we go deep on 250,000, the moment war